Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Chill Out podcast. So, we're back. I'm so happy to be hanging out with you. It's currently raining outside, so I'm chilling on the couch with my blanket and I'm like so cozy. Oh my gosh. I actually miss summer. I'm not even gonna lie with you guys because the cold, it is just too much. And I'm just being honest. I really miss the sun. So, yeah, that's where we're at. But I'm super excited for this week's episode. Let's get into it. Do you ever stand in front of your closet for like 20 minutes trying on 3 different outfits, only to realize that you don't even like any one of them? And then this like tiny voice in your head whispers, would I even wear this if no one was going to see me today? Well, same. It's a weird like kind of spiral. Like 1 minute you're like getting dressed, the next you're wondering who you're actually getting dressed for. And if you're like me, someone who genuinely like enjoys fashion and expression, it can be hard to untangle style from performance. Like, am I expressing myself or am I dressing for how I want to be perceived? So that's what we are going to be unpacking today, because the male gaze isn't just about how women are portrayed in movies or ads. It's also something many of us have internalized. It can shape how we move, what we wear, how we speak, what we post, and even how we experience our own bodies. And honestly, I'm so over it. So in today's episode, we're diving into all of that. We're talking about unlearning the male gaze, reconnecting with your own sense of beauty, and how female pleasure, yes, orgasms, can actually be a powerful part of reclaiming your body, your glow, your energy, and doing it all for you. Because we've been told for so long that looking good is the goal, but what if feeling good is actually the real power? This episode, as always, is soft, real, and maybe a little bit chaotic, but I hope it reminds you that you never needed the gaze to begin with. You just needed your own. So let's get into it. So before we dive into all of that, what is the male gaze? So the term male gaze was introduced by British film theorist Laura Mulvey in 1975 in an essay titled Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema. And even though it started as a concept used to critique Hollywood films, it became a much larger framework for understanding how women have been socially conditioned to view themselves, and how that conditioning shapes everything from how we dress to how we feel in our own bodies. At its core, the male gaze is about power. In film and media, Mulvey argued that the camera often acts as a stand-in for a straight male viewer, which is totally true. That means the woman on screen isn't being shown as a complex character with agency. She's being shown as an object of desire. She's being watched. She exists to be seen, not to act or speak or lead the story. So times have changed, obviously, and now we have like female directors and more female powerful type of roles. So we're making progress, okay? It's not like it was back then, but the whole concept of the male gaze still exists in our modern time. In the 70s, like if you look at a lot of films, even when the woman like would speak, it's often to further the male protagonist's journey. Even when she's powerful, she's still made to look hot doing it. So it's subtle, but it is kind of everywhere, even today. But let's bring it into real life, because we've all felt it. The male gaze isn't just about camera angles or advertising tropes. It's become a lens many of us internalize without even realizing it. It can look like standing in front of the mirror and like automatically critiquing your body, or choosing an outfit based on what's flattering rather than what feels like you, worrying if you're still pretty when you cry, feeling like your worth is based on how dateable you seem, thinking your body is a problem to fix instead of a place that you actually live. It shows up in how we speak too, like maybe making your voice higher or softer or more like grungy to sound more appealing, downplaying your opinions to not seem too much, smiling when you don't feel like it just so you're more palatable. And honestly, that can be super exhausting because it teaches us to live life from the outside in, constantly assessing ourselves through a mental audience of how we're being perceived. And it's sort of like hard not to think about stuff like this, especially as a woman, because when you like someone, for example, you start like trying to almost please them in a way. Maybe it's even in a subconscious way because you want them to be interested in you. Maybe you feel a little bit insecure about something. So you sort of try and play into that on what they would find appealing or sexy or whatever. And to be honest, it's actually so exhausting and I'm so tired of it. And that's what really inspired this episode. The biggest lie the male gaze sells us is that being desirable is the same thing as being valuable. That to be loved, you must first be watchable, so pretty or quiet or small or agreeable, that your body, your face, your aura, your energy all need to be curated for approval. But what happens when you actually decide to look at yourself instead, not for performance, not for validation, but for truth, for softness, for yourself? That's where things start to shift. When you realize that you don't exist to be just looked at, you exist to actually love. Growing up, when I think back to it, the whole concept of being hot was basically a brand, and for a long time it came in one very specific package: tall, thin, tanned, blonde. Think early 2000s runway shows, Victoria's Secret models, sort of the every girl that boys in high school drooled over and really found super appealing. That was the standard. Then came the Kylie era. Suddenly the ideal became curvy, hourglass, BBL coated, full lips, snatched waist. And now, who knows what'll be next? Because beauty has started to feel less like something personal and more like a trend cycle, which is so scary to think about. Like the way that your face or hips are shaped can go out of style, which is such a crazy thing to even think about. The fact that your body is now being viewed as a trend. And honestly, that's a weird and brutal thing to grow up around, especially if you're already in a vulnerable place with your own self-image. Because when the male gaze is the loudest in the room and you're still figuring out who you are, it gets harder and harder to not compare yourself. It's exhausting. And it messes with your head in ways you don't even notice until later on. I was never the girl chasing guys in high school. I've always admired from a distance. Honestly, who doesn't? Kept to myself, leaned more into being friends with guys and dating them, probably because I grew up around a lot of male energy, 3 brothers, my dad, some guy friends. It just felt safe. But the downside of that, you start to really internalize how they think. You know what they find attractive. You hear their unfiltered conversations, and then suddenly, without realizing it, you're looking at yourself through their lens. You start asking yourself, would they think this outfit is hot? Is my face their type? Do I seem cool enough? And that's sort of the downside that I've realized as I've grown up from having guy friends is, sure, it's cool to hang and they're super chill sometimes, but when you become sort of in their conversation and you start hearing things that they find sexy and attractive and hot, it's hard not to internalize that subconsciously and then start comparing yourself. Because now you're thinking, wait, I don't actually look like a lot of these girls that they're finding super hot. Maybe there's something wrong with me. Am I not hot? Am I not pretty? Am I not good enough? And those are the types of shitty thoughts that come into your mind as a woman sometimes, which honestly sucks. So there's a downside. And obviously, when you have guy friends, from my own experience, half of the time you're not even attracted to them. But it's not even about that. It's just that your mind sometimes plays tricks on you and you're subconsciously comparing yourself to other females. So the thing is, I've never been that girl that automatically compares myself. So if somebody is attracted to a certain type of look, I've always been okay and chill about it and being yeah, that person's clearly not for me. That's not my vibe. It's fine. I'll move on. And I think the only time that I can remember when I actually started becoming more aware of myself comparing myself to other girls was when I was in my very first I wouldn't even call it a relationship, I'll just call it a situationship. But it was during that whole time when I was just turning 20, and obviously when you're hearing what the guy likes and finds appealing and you obviously want him to find you attractive, you subconsciously start comparing yourself through their eyes, and it's not fun. It's not really a good thing to be doing to yourself because everyone's unique and beautiful in their own way. And I don't mean that in a cheesy way. I genuinely mean it. So that was the first time that I can really remember when I started subconsciously actually thinking about stuff like that, which sucks. You might even catch yourself doing things that you're not even aware of, like posing a certain way in a photo, or making your voice a little softer or deeper, or second guessing what you were going to say because you didn't want to come across as like too much or too emotional or too confident. You may have even flirted with a guy by like downplaying your opinions, sat cross legs even when it was not that comfortable, stayed quiet just to not take up any space and make other people feel comfortable. And I know that you're not alone in that, because this is what a lot of females experience. Like these little habits, these unconscious edits we make to ourselves, they add up. You start to wonder, where did I end and where did performance begin? But the shift happens when you start noticing it, when you realize that most of those insecurities weren't yours to begin with, that they were planted by someone else's idea of who you should be, and that you're allowed to let them go. You're allowed to define beauty and power and presence on your own terms. You're allowed to show up as you are, even when you're not on, especially then. So I was with this guy, right, in my very early 20s, and I like referencing this specific time in my life because this was a very vulnerable time, a very dark time too, and it's a very important time in your life because you're sort of just still coming into your own, figuring out who you are, figuring out what you want, and you are sort of like a sponge at that time, so you're like absorbing and being influenced by so many things and people that sometimes it's not that great, okay? And this one guy was into fashion, okay? I would even call him a fashion snob. So he basically did not like how I would dress. And now when I look back at it, I'm like, I actually didn't dress that bad. But according to him and those people in that crowd, that obviously wasn't acceptable or cool. So this guy literally did not like how I was dressing. And at that time, I was like, yeah, sure. Like, I'll definitely change my style. Like, what do you think? And then I would let him dress me. And I remember one time I didn't fit in to these like jeans in the way that he thought would actually work for me. But the thing is, my body isn't a snatched waist. It's more of like an athletic type of build, skinnier. So he like literally said to me, I can't remember the exact words, but it was basically like, why is your body like this? Like, why is this fitting like this? And I vividly remember this because it stayed with me for so long and made me so insecure. Like, I've always struggled with having like body image issues, even from a very young age. Like, my weight would always fluctuate and I wasn't really eating that healthy. So that's probably why. But that was the first time that I actually really felt terrible about myself because of what he said. And obviously, when you are romantically involved with someone or even sexually involved with someone, you want to impress them. You want them to be attracted to you and find you sexy and hot and all of that. And when I think back to it now, I'm like, honestly, the things that I would have said in that moment, I would never let anyone talk to me like that again. So let's shift gears and talk about something that still makes a lot of people squirm, okay? Female pleasure. Because for so long, even that, something that's meant to be deeply personal and empowering, has been shaped by the male gaze. It's been filtered through porn or through movies or through like performative ideas of what sexy looks like, fast, loud, for show, for someone else, not for the actual woman experiencing it. Most of us grew up being taught, whether directly or indirectly, that our sexuality was something to manage or to display, but not something to actually own. And that's where the disconnect starts. Instead of being taught to explore what feels good to us, we were taught to prioritize being desirable to someone else. And that messes with how deeply we connect to our own bodies, because real female pleasure, the kind that comes from intention and safety and presence, isn't about being watched, it's about being felt. This is where the female gaze comes in. Unlike the male gaze, which centers control and visual appeal, the female gaze is about embodiment. It's slower, softer. It values vulnerability and curiosity and sensation. It's about what something feels like, not what it looks like. It's the difference between putting on a show versus dropping into your body and really feeling connected in an open, safe, present, and ironically, that's where the real glow comes from. Here's the thing that's like super fascinating. Research actually shows that orgasms actually are good for your skin, like scientifically, guys. They boost blood circulation, which improves oxygen and nutrient delivery to your skin cells. Amazing. They release endorphins, reduce cortisol, help regulate hormones, improve sleep, and yes, even stimulate collagen production. So technically, an orgasm can give you that post-facial glow. And listen, there's nothing wrong with a good skincare routine. I love a good skincare routine. I love my moisturizer and my SPF. But the glow we're chasing through 15-step routines and expensive facials, it might actually be waiting for you on the other side of a slow and intentional orgasm. One that is for you. One that reconnects you to your body without any judgment or performance. Beyond skin deep, pleasure is also deeply linked to our nervous system, okay? When you're stressed or disconnected from your body, your nervous system is in fight or flight mode. You're tense, numb, unreachable, but pleasure, especially when it's safe and self-directed, brings your nervous system back to regulation. It softens you, it grounds you, it makes you feel at home in your own skin again. And in a world that constantly demands us to perform, to optimize, to hustle, to be on control, being soft is totally revolutionary. Pleasure is not a luxury, it's not selfish, it's one of the most direct ways to actually return back to yourself, to feel more alive, to feel more like yourself. And the more that we learn to stop performing and start listening to our bodies, the more that we step back into our own power. Not the kind that we've been taught to have, but the kind that's always been there, quietly waiting to be remembered again. Let's ask the big, quiet question that so many of us avoid. What does it actually mean to feel beautiful when no one is watching? Not just like pretty in the mirror or cute in a selfie, but beautiful in your own body without needing to be perceived at all. What does it feel like to move through your day, not for the highlight reel, but for the experience of being? To dress for your own joy, to speak without shrinking, to feel the air on your skin and not care who's looking. There's something wildly powerful and reconnecting about those private moments that you have with yourself. Not for the male gaze, not for Instagram, not for someone else's approval, just for you. Sometimes it happens through movement, like dancing in your room with no one around. Sometimes it's through creativity, when you're painting or writing or building something and completely losing track of time. Sometimes it's through style, when you wear something that makes you feel free and a little bit unhinged in the best way. And sometimes it's about pleasure, deep, intentional, slow pleasure that isn't about being hot, but about being home in your own body. That's where it starts. That slow, quiet deconditioning. When you stop reaching for clothes that flatter and start choosing ones that feel more like yourself. When you can explore your own sexuality out of curiosity, not for comparison. When you realize that your value has never been in your appearance, it's been in your presence. There was this one moment I'll never forget. It wasn't on camera, it wasn't glamorous. I was alone, walking through a little part of my neighborhood I'd never noticed before, and the lights were soft. I had no makeup on, my headphones were in, and I was drinking an iced matcha, of course. I wasn't thinking about how I looked, I wasn't performing or posing, I was just in my body. And in that moment, I felt magnetic, not because anyone else was looking, but because I was finally looking at myself with more softness, with reverence, with pride. That's beauty, that's power, and that's presence. So maybe feeling beautiful without an audience isn't about detaching from style or sensuality or wanting to be seen. Maybe it is about asking, am I doing this for me or for the version of me I think they want? And if it's for me, can I lean into it more? Because true beauty, the kind that lingers, isn't performative. It's embodied, it's felt, and it never needs permission. The thing no one wants to admit, but most women have done at least once or more, is faking an orgasm. It's not just about pretending. It's about performance, pressure, discomfort, and sometimes it's about survival. Faking it doesn't always come from a place of like manipulation or deceit. It often comes from wanting to protect someone else's ego more than our own experience. We've been so conditioned to believe that our role in sex is to please and to affirm and be desirable, that we've sort of detached ourselves from the idea that our own pleasure is the point too. We rush it to like wrap it up or give the other person a sense of accomplishment, because somewhere deep in our conditioning, We've been taught that our body is a mirror for someone else's success. And honestly, that is so exhausting and so selfish. Honestly, like, the woman should find pleasure too. I really think that it's rooted in the way we're socialized. From early on, women are taught to be accommodating, to not make things awkward, to not ask for too much. And that carries over into the bedroom, where we often don't feel empowered to ask for what we actually want, especially when we're still learning what that even is. There's shame around slowness, around needing more time or more communication. And let's not forget, not finishing at all. So instead of honoring our needs, we act, we speed it up, we perform, and we lose ourselves in the process. There's always the very real fear of being labeled too difficult, too sensitive, or too high maintenance. So we pretend. Not always because we want to, but because we don't want to deal with the fallout of like not pretending. And the thing is, you do get women who are naturally in their feminine energy and are more softer, and they've had that opportunity to be like that from an early age. But a lot of people haven't had that luxury to simply just be soft. Some women have had to deal with a lot of things and have had to like harden in a way and step more into their masculine energy in order to protect themselves. So not all of us have that type of luxury. And a lot of men that I've noticed, not all of them, because you do get really great ones, but a lot of men are intimidated by a woman's sense of confidence and power. And sometimes when that intimidates them, they sort of want you to shrink down so that they feel comfortable with themselves. And that also kind of stems from the whole sexual experience of why women tend to just want to please the guy all the time and not ask for too much, because then she's not coming across as sexy or submissive enough. So that's where the whole gray area of this whole conversation lies. Faking it is often a coping mechanism in a world that hasn't made women's pleasure feel safe or valued or prioritized. It's not your fault if you've done it, so many of us have, but it's also okay to want something more, to unlearn the performance and actually start practicing more presence. Because here's the truth, you don't owe anyone an orgasm, especially a fake one. You owe yourself the honesty, the curiosity, the softness, and the space to explore what actually feels good to you. And the more we speak openly about this type of stuff, the more we normalize the idea that women's pleasure isn't extra, it's actually essential. You deserve to be with someone who listens, who cares, who wants you to feel as good as you want them to feel. And most importantly, you deserve to like stop performing and start reclaiming your body, not for any applause, but for yourself. So let's get real for a second. It's easy to say that sexy is an energy or confidence comes from within. And yes, that's true. But when you've like grown up being constantly told what sexy should look like, what cool is, like a tiny waist, long legs, a certain cup size, glowing skin, effortless hair, it's hard not to internalize those ideas. Like, let's be real, especially when hot gets treated like a currency, something you either have or don't have, something someone else hands to you through likes or compliments or attention. But realistically, sexy looks different for everyone and feels different too. For me, I feel sexy after a good workout, not because my body changed in an hour, but because I showed up for myself. I moved, I got sweaty, I pushed through resistance. That version of me, the one that did something hard and actually finished it, that's hard. Or when I've had a really productive day, even if it's just like cleaning my space or ticking off a few small things off my to-do list, it's the kind of sexy that feels grounded. I feel accomplished. I feel good. Like I'm in control of my energy and I've got my shit together, even if it's just a little bit. And then there's the external stuff, which we're allowed to love too. When I wear something that makes me feel like myself, maybe it's a fitted black dress, maybe it's an oversized pair of jeans and a crop tee, it's not for anyone else. It's a signal to myself that I care enough to feel good in my skin today. I love slicking my hair back and putting some lip liner on and some lip balm and some SPF so my skin feels good, which makes me feel good. I love dressing with intention, especially when it's just for a random Tuesday. It makes my day feel like mine. And yes, like I mentioned, I have bigger boobs, which means I have spent years being hyper aware of them, how people look at them, how clothes fit, how I'm perceived. And for a long time, I dressed to downplay them. I didn't want them to be seen too much, but now I embrace them on my own terms. If I want to show them off, I will. If I want to wear something tight, I will. If I want to cover up and wear baggy clothes and not be perceived at all, I will do that too. Sexy is mine to define. It's yours to define, and it shifts depending on your mood, depending on the cycle or your energy, and that is allowed. So no, you don't need to be effortlessly that girl every day, but you can move your body because it makes you feel strong. You can take care of your skin because you like how it feels. You can wear something that hugs your body in all the right places, not because someone else will notice, but because you did. Sexy doesn't always scream. Sometimes it's quiet confidence. Sometimes it's showing up fully. Sometimes it's putting yourself first. And the less that we give a fuck about being sexy for someone else, the more magnetic we become for ourselves. Physically, sure, a guy is a guy, but you do get guys who notice confidence in how someone carries themselves, the way that they move, the way that they laugh, the way that they treat people. That kind of guy might appreciate someone who embraces their body, owns their body, or their quirks, and doesn't apologize for it. Not in like a showy way, but in a comfortable in her own skin kind of way. And that's hot, okay guys? And humor, totally a must. A girl can be playful, tease him back, be a little weird, a little chaotic. The kind of energy that says, I don't need to impress you. Like, I'm just vibing on my own frequency right now. I'm chill, and I'm me. Look, you can be funny and emotional and grounded and hot at the same time without trying to be anything other than yourself. Also, this isn't only an unattractive person type of thing, and I'm using quotation marks right now. It's not only a viewpoint from a certain type of person, because even objectively hot girls feel it too, because being seen isn't the same as being understood. And what we all really want, no matter how we look, is to be understood and felt and chosen for our realest, most unfiltered selves. And the truth is, the more that you step into that version of yourself, the more magnetic you become. Not because you're trying to be sexy, but because you're just being yourself. I've always noticed my boobs, like always, and I mean, I get it, I'm not oblivious, but when you start to feel like guys are only making the effort because of whatever fantasy they've built up around you, it does sort of start to feel a little bit weird. Like, hello, I also have so much more to offer. I'm a full person. I remember when I would go like out at night in Camps Bay with my friends and we go drinking, and I'd wear like really revealing tops and outfits and shirts, drinks, and a party vibe, and you're young, so YOLO. But only being looked at in a sexual way all the time, never on like a deeper level, honestly sucks and gets tiring. And I know you're probably thinking, Kelly, seriously, if you want to be respected, you should not be wearing a low-cut top and you should not be going out and trying to find a guy at a club. But what I'm trying to reiterate is the fact that it's not nice to always feel like that, no matter what you're wearing or where you're at. And it's nice to also be looked at sometimes in a deeper way, and the fact that you do have more to offer. So the guy that I was speaking about earlier on was someone that had a very specific type, right? So he'd always talk about girls who looked like literally nothing like me. Like, cool, so why are you here? And that just added to the whole mess in my head. And I'm 20 years old, okay? I'm stupid and naive and clearly being influenced by the wrong people. And it made me question myself and compare and spiral into insecurity. But I've learned something since. When you grow up and you go through some shit, you start realizing that the only person who's going to show up for you every single time is you. You start focusing on building a life that feels more like you, not only curated to be liked by some guy who wouldn't even notice your mind if you literally handed it to them on a silver platter. And once you really start living for yourself, you tap into this quiet and powerful, I don't give a fuck energy. You stop molding yourself to fit someone else's preference because you realize you're not supposed to be for everyone. You're not supposed to be available to everyone. And also, like, seriously, why would you want to be? I mean, come on. Being a woman sometimes is so hard. Sometimes I literally think to myself, like, honestly, sometimes I just wish I was not a woman, because we have so many emotions sometimes, you know, and it's so hard. And a lot of us tend to like deal with a lot of things privately and with ourselves, especially when it comes to like mental health or even relationships and insecurities and all of that. So that's why I was so inspired to create a podcast where I can be unfiltered about real conversations and real thoughts that a lot of people actually struggle with and a lot of people actually don't talk about enough. So yeah. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys. I hope this episode left you feeling a little bit more seen, a little bit more understood, and maybe even a little bit more inspired to show up as your full, unapologetically hot self. Okay, remember, you don't need to fit anyone else's idea of sexy or lovable or worthy. You just need to be you. Keep trusting yourself, keep embracing your messy, beautiful complexity, and keep taking up space in this world exactly as you are. Be kind to yourself, and don't forget, the right people will always show up when you're being real, okay? Have an amazing week. Have a happy Sunday. I love you. Bye.